Microsoft would receive from the browser?
And my answer is directly related to that, which is I would have taken, I don't recall the number, but I would have taken the revenue Netscape was getting and used that to come up with what the number might look like for us proportional to our traffic. That's what I recall about that.
What you're saying is you don't recall what the number was,
no,
but you do recall the methodology that would be used to arrive at the number.
That's right.
Now, focusing on the number, I want to ask you the question that I always do in these circumstances, which is, do you recall any estimate or range of what the number was? I know you've given me a methodology, and that is helpful, and I appreciate it. But I also want to know whether you recall anything at all about approximately what the number actually was that you came up with, or what the range would be.
Well, there's several variables. Nobody can just say a number. You have to decide how much the Internet's going to increase in popularity. You have to decide over what period of time you're trying to estimate this number. You have to decide what the traffic share of IE will be. And then you sort of take the Netscape traffic at that point in time and use that, and say, is the monetized traffic sort of per hit going to become equally valuable, less valuable, or more valuable?
And is that what you did back then?
That's what I recall we did.
Okay, now, what I'm trying to find out is if you recall at all, what was the approximate number that you came up with, or what was the range within which the number, in your terminology, with a high degree of probability, would fall?
I'm sure that we came up with different numbers with the different assumptions, but I don't recall any of those numbers.
Okay. Or do you recall approximately what any of those numbers were?
I could only do it by going back to the algorithm I've described to you and sort of using that data now and computing numbers in terms of a recollection of any numbers based on the various assumptions that have to be made back in that time frame. No.
Okay. You were asked some questions earlier about a June 21, 1995 meeting with Netscape. And that's a meeting you did not attend. Am I correct?
I've never met with Netscape.
And did you know that Microsoft people were meeting with Netscape before they actually met?
I don't recall knowing in advance.
You did know after the fact because you got the emails that we saw, correct? Yeah,
that's right. I recall getting those emails, at least the Thomas Reardon Silverberg one. I'm not aware of any such thing, and I know it's very much against the way we operate.
It would be against company policy to do that.
That's right.
Now, subsequent to being apprised that Mr. Andreessen, at least, was asserting that this had happened, did you make any effort to find out what had actually happened at that meeting?
Well, first of all, I don't want to be involved in characterizing what Mr. Andreessen said, because all I know is something about a quote about a dead horse head or something like that. That was what I recall from the Wall Street Journal article. I did, after the Wall Street Journal article, see some email that Andreessen had sent our people after the meeting saying it was a great meeting. And I did see the Reardon mail that I deleted, but somebody gave back to me, and some Reardon notes from the meeting. Now, I think we're talking about the same meeting. I think there may have been more than one, but in any case, I think we're talking about the same meeting.
I think the record may show that there was a meeting before the June 21 meeting.
That sounds right.
But the meeting that I was particularly asking about was the June 21 meeting, and I think that probably was what was in the Wall Street Journal.
No, you can't really say, because the Wall Street Journal talked about a May meeting, and May is not June.
You're right.
Not by a long shot.
May is not June. I agree with May is not June, and maybe there were two such meetings. I don't.
Well, I'm not aware of any meeting between us and Netscape in May. So that seems very strange, and that confused me about that Wall Street Journal article.
Let me ask you, did you, when you saw the Wall Street Journal article and talked about a May meeting in terms of allegedly market-dividing conduct, did you try to find out whether there had been a May meeting between representatives of Microsoft and representatives of Netscape?
Well, again, I wouldn't characterize the article in that way. When I read the article, what it said interested me enough and concerned me enough. I did seek to find out if there was a May meeting, but I don't think the article is what you're said what you're suggesting. I mean, we should get a copy of the article. I don't remember it that way.
Okay.
I remember Andreessen talking about how he'd been in fear that Don Corleone had come to see him, and once I realized that there was no meeting in May, and it wasn't, that he after the meeting said he enjoyed the meeting, and that it was, just a group of our guys down there trying to talk about if there was any areas of cooperation. The whole thing seemed very strange to me.
Did you talk to people to find out whether there was a May meeting?
Yes.
Who did you talk to?
I consulted with my lawyers.
Other than consulting with your lawyers, did you try to find out whether there was a May meeting?
Well, my lawyers then talked to all the people that might have met with Netscape, and I made sure they did that pretty broadly.
And you were informed that there was no May meeting. Is that your testimony?
That's the understanding I was given, yes. And then I was given some of the other information that I've already mentioned.
But all that information came from your lawyers, not from non-lawyer employees of Microsoft. Is that what you're saying?
It came to me through my lawyers.
Did you ever have a conversation with anyone in the last 12 months, other than your lawyers, concerning whether there were meetings in May or June of 1995 with Netscape, and if so, what happened at those meetings?
Well, there might have been a point after I got all the data from the lawyers where I said to some of the PR people what an outrageous slander that article had been and how unfair I felt it was, and so I may have mentioned that to them.
Did you have any conversations in the last 12 months with any person who was dealing with Netscape in 1995 about whether there were May or June meetings, and if so, what happened at those meetings?
No, I relied on the lawyers to go in and meet with those people and gather the facts and educate me about was there a May meeting and what was the agenda or what was Andreessen's state of mind after the meeting, what did the notes look like. But that's all very recent. That is after the journal article.
Now, have you ever read the complaint in this case?
No.
Have you ever received a summary of the complaint in this case?
I wouldn't say I've received a summary, no. I've talked to my lawyers about the case, but not really the complaint.
Do you know whether in the complaint there is an assertion? I'm not talking about the Wall Street Journal article. I'm talking about the complaint that was filed last May. Do you know whether in that complaint there are allegations concerning a 1995 meeting between Netscape and Microsoft representatives relating to alleged market division discussions?
I haven't read the complaint, so I don't know for sure, but I think somebody said that is in there.
Did you find that out before or after the Wall Street Journal article?
The first time I knew about these allegations was the Wall Street Journal article.